video for Algebra Unit 2. The equation is linear equations. The unit name is linear equations. All right, so problem number 1, they want you to simplify 1 times x minus x over 1. So in your order of operations, you do parentheses, there's none of those, exponents, there's none of those, and then you do any multiplication and division. So you're going to multiply 1 times x. Now, anything times x, that's the identity property of multiplication. 1 times anything equals itself. X, so what you have left is x minus x over 1. Now to subtract, you have common denominators. Well, while you can't see it here, this is over 1. Every whole number is over 1. We just don't usually show it. So this one is under 1, or this one, anything over 1 is itself. So we can totally ignore those. X minus x gives us 0, nothing, all right? Number 2, you're going to solve for n, okay? So when you're solving for a variable, what you want to do is isolate that variable on one side of the equal sign. Move everything else away from it. You do that by performing the opposite function. So in this case, it's negative 58 plus n equals negative 28. So I want n by itself, right? So I'm going to move this 58, all right? It's negative, so to get rid of it, you would add it to both sides. 58, add the 58 over here, and you're left with n equals negative 28 plus 58. I'll let you do that on your calculator. Number 3, which of the following represents 7 times the sum of a number and 12 is equal to 8 times the number? All right, so we have several different ones here. So it's what you need to pay attention to is words like equal or is. Okay, so your equal sign is where is equal to. So 7 times the sum of a number and 12. So we're looking at this right here. 7 times the sum of a number and 12. This one says 7 times 8, the sum of 8 times a number and 12 equals that number. And this one would say 7 times the sum of a number and 8 times the same number equals 12. So this one reads 7 times the sum of a number and 12 equals 8 times the same number. All right, and then number 4. Again, we're solving for a variable, so you have to do the opposite function. Now this is negative 5x equals negative 25. So what we need to remember here is that when you are multiplying and dividing, you don't change your signs. So negative 5 is multiplied to x, so the opposite of multiplication is division. Opposite function here, opposite function here, all right? So those eliminate. You carry your negative with you, okay, because you don't change signs in multiplication and division. So negative 25 divided by negative 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5, and 2 negatives make a positive. So negative 25 divided by negative 5 is positive 5. All right, problem number 5. Again, we're solving for our variable. This time, there's an addition aspect and a multiplication that we have to deal with. So you always deal with your addition and subtraction first, and then deal with your division and multiplication. So 1 is subtracted. The opposite of subtraction would be addition. So you're going to add the 1 over here. You add it here as well, and it disappears. So you have 7x equals 21 plus 1 is 22. So 7x equals 22, and then the 7 is multiplied to x. Opposite of multiplication is division. You divide both sides by 7. X is going to equal 22 over 7. All right, number 6. Same thing again, solve for x. This time they don't even make you do 2 steps, just 1 step. The 2 is divided to x. X over 2, or to x divided by 2 is equal to negative 3. So the opposite of division is multiplication. So you multiply this side by 2 and this side by 2. The 2's cancel here. You're left with x equals negative 3 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6. And when 1 is a negative and 1 is a positive, you always have a negative. All right, number 7. Again, this time they're going to give you an addition aspect, division, and multiplication. All right, so first off, you take care of the addition or subtraction. 2 is added, so the opposite of addition is subtraction. We'll get rid of it there. We have left over here 3x over 6 equals 6, right? All right, then we have 3x over 6 equals 6. So it's divided by 6. We would move 6 over here and multiply. So now you have 3x equals 6 times 6, which is 36. And then 3 is multiplied to x. Opposite of multiplication is division. Divide x equals 36 divided by 3, which is 12. All right, number 8, they ask you a question. They say, in the solution of the equation 5 minus 5x equals 2x plus 1, 5x is added to the equation first. Which of the following should be done next? So what they're teaching you is how to deal with a variable on both sides of the equation. So what you do is you choose which side to put your variable. So what they're saying is they added x. So, they added 5x to the equation. So that means this 5x, which was negative, they moved it over here with the 2x and said we're going to add the 5x. So we've put our variable on that side, the right side of the equation. So that means we want to move all our constants to this side of the equation. So the next step would be subtracting this 1. Say then you end up with 7x here and 4 here. So when you move your variables to one side, you're going to move all your constants to the other. All right, number 9. Now they're actually going to give you an equation with more than one variable. There's 3. They're the same variable. There's 3 different terms of vegetables, variables here, okay? So they're going to give you a variable on both sides. So first off, you need to check and see if anything can be combined on this side or that side. So on this side, see there's a negative 4x, plus x. So that can go ahead and be combined. Negative 4 plus 1 is a negative 3x plus 15 equals negative 3x plus 12. All right, so the next step would be to put your variables on one side. Now, usually I would choose whatever number is bigger, but in this case, you can see they're exactly the same, negative 3x and negative 3x. So it doesn't matter which side you move it to, because no matter which side you move it to, this would be a negative 3x. We would move this 3x over here, and it's going to add 3x. Over here, we have a 12 still, and we want to move this 15. It's positive, so on this side, it's going to be negative. All right, because negative 3 plus 3 is 0. You end up with 0x right here equals negative 3. So the answer is 0. Nothing can be done. I'm sorry, the answer is not 0. The answer is an empty set. Because as soon as you lose your variable, that's an empty set. If you got 4x equals 0, then that's when your answer would be 0. But if you eliminate a variable, the answer is an empty set. There's no way to answer that problem. All right, problem number 10, they show you for the first time distributive property, okay? So distributive property is when you have a number multiplied outside a set of parentheses. So when you do this, you have to multiply this number by both terms before you can do anything else, all right? So first off, we're going to go 4 times 3x. So 4 times 3 is 12x. And then you have to go 4 times negative 1. Now pay attention to this sign in here, because if it's a negative, it's going to make it negative 4. So 4 times negative 1 equals 6. Now we can solve it. This 4 is subtracted, so on the other side it's going to add. So you have 12x equals 10. And then from there, remember your 12 has to go over and divide on this side. And they probably want you reduced to lowest terms. All right, problem number 11, they give you distributive property again. They give you 2 sets of it. All right, and then we're going to combine like terms and solve for x. All right, so do your distributive property again. You have 4 times 3x is 12x. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. And I encourage you to have a pencil and paper out and be writing each of these with me so that you know how to do it. All right, then next we have 3 times 3, which is 9. And then 3 times a negative x, so a positive times a negative gives you a negative 3x equals 0. All right, so again, on this side, we're going to combine all our like terms. So we have 12x and we have 3x, okay? What's in front of it tells you what to do. So it's 12x minus 3x. So 12 minus 3 is 9x. All right, and then you have a negative 4 plus 9. So negative 4 plus 9 is actually a positive 5 equals 0. Now to solve for x, we need to start isolating it. All right, so add 5 is added. So we want to move it to the other side. It's going to subtract over here. So 9x equals negative 5, because 0 minus 5 is negative 5. And then you have to divide by the 9. So x is going to equal to negative 5 divided by 9, or negative 5 over 9. All right, number 12 is a real equation. So they want you to solve for b. They want to know, you know what the opposite function is. All right, so in this case, they want you to solve for b. Now this is a little harder because b is actually inside of the parenthesis. If it was just by x, if we were solving for x, we could just move this whole set of parentheses over. But because b is inside, we actually have to go ahead and do our distributive property. So we're going to say r equals, and then go ahead and multiply. X times a is ax. You always put it in alphabetical order. All right, and then x times b is bx. All right, we're solving for b. So first off, ax is added to b. So the opposite of addition, there's no negative sign here, so we know it's positive, is subtraction. So this will be r minus ax equals bx. All right, then we want b by itself again, right? So x is multiply. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to move this x over here and divide. So b is going to equal r minus ax over x. All right, problem number 13, they want you to write an equation. It says if 5 times a certain number is added to x, the result is 35. So I think the question here would be, am I supposed to put the sum inside parentheses? It's the difference of saying 5 times a certain number is added to x and saying 5 plus the sum of a number and 5 times, the difference between saying 5 times a number is added and 5 times a certain number times added to 9. So that came out weird. But because of how it's worded, it says 5 times a certain number. That tells us that we multiply is added to 9. Rather than 5 times a certain number added to 9. All right. Let me read how that's. You would say 5 times the sum. Oh, that's how you would say it. This would read 5 times the sum of a number and 9. Rather than 5 times a number plus 9. Okay. So that was a little confusing, but 5 times a number plus 9, no parentheses needed, all right, is equal to 35. So simple enough. All right, starting next, we're going to go into word problems, okay? So let's just review our steps for solving a word problem. I believe they taught you VEST, V-E-S-T, okay? So V, very first off, you assign your variables. All right, so you name what you got, and then equations is next. I know how to spell it, equations. All right, and then next you solve, and then last you're going to try it. All right, so the first one says, Peggy has 5 times as many quarters as nickels. She has $3.90 in all. How many nickels and how many quarters does she have? So we know that she has nickels, N-I-C-K, nickels and quarters. Okay, they say, if the variable n represents the number of nickels, then which of the following expressions represents the number of quarters? So we know nickels is n, and then the equation said, this is number 14, Peggy has 5 times as many quarters as nickels. So we're going to take nickels and times it by 5. 5 in. That's simple, all right? Next, they want you to write your equation that would be used, okay? So in money problems, you know that her nickels plus her quarters, I forgot the R on quarters. There you go. The nickels plus the quarters is going to equal $3.90. So you know nickels, her nickels is n, plus the quarters, which is 5n, should equal $3.90. Now in money problems, you have to multiply them by their cent worth. So n has to be multiplied by 0.05, because that's how much a nickel is worth. And a quarter would have to be multiplied by 0.25, because that's how many cents a quarter is worth. All right, so don't forget this step, okay? Then immediately, as soon as you write your equation, you can multiply it by 100. And what that does, all it does is move the decimal. That's why you have to have these parentheses around n and 5n. So they're not touched by this multiplying by 100, but all of these are. Then all we have left here is 5n plus 25 times 5n is equal to 390. No decimals. We don't have to worry about that anymore. Then, in this one, they actually want you to do this multiplication here, 25 times 5n. So you have 5n plus, I believe 25 times 5 is going to be 125n equals 390. All right, number 16. Ralph is 3 times as old as Sarah. In 6 years, Ralph will only be twice as old as Sarah will be then. Find Ralph's age now. So you have Sarah and you have Ralph. Okay, we're going to assign our variables. They tell us next if X represents Sarah's age now. So Sarah's age now. Which of the following expressions represents Ralph's age in 6 years? So now we know that Ralph is 3 times as old as Sarah. That's what it says. Ralph is 3 times as old as Sarah. All right, so 3 times Sarah, and then that's what they are now. Now to do in 6 years, you just add a 6. Add 6. That's going to be Ralph's age in 6 years. So the equation is going to be Ralph is 3 times as old as Sarah. In 6 years, Ralph will be only twice as old as Sarah will be then. Okay, so Ralph in 6 years, which is this one right here, Ralph in 6 years will be only twice as old as Sarah. So now he's only 2 times X in 6 years. Sorry, twice as old as Sarah in 6 years. You have to have the parentheses to show that it's not Sarah now. It's Sarah in 6 years. He's going to be twice her age. Now we got to solve this equation, all right? So you have 3x plus 6. Nothing needs to be done there. Over here we have our distributive property. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 6 is 12. And then we got 3x. We're going to move our variable over here. It's positive, so we're going to put minus 2x. Over here we have 12, and we're going to subtract this 6. All right, so 3x minus 2x is x, and 12 minus 6 is 6. So that tells us Sarah's age now. But they want to know, what is Ralph's age now? So remember, Ralph is 3 times as old as Sarah. Not in 6 years. We don't want to deal with that right now. Right now, Ralph is 3 times 6, which is 18. Ralph is 18 years old. All right, problem number 18. They say what? Find 2 consecutive integers whose sum is 43. So number 1, we're going to assign our variables. Our variables are going to be, for consecutive integers, you have first side and the second side. 2 numbers we're looking for here. The first one is always called x, and the second one for consecutive integers is always x plus 1. Now, if they say consecutive even integers or consecutive odd integers, you have to add 2. So you can skip a number. But if they just say consecutive integers, it's just x and x plus 1. If they say 3 consecutive integers, your third one would be named x plus 2. Okay? Now, the equation says whose sum is 43. So simple enough, added together, they should equal 43. So the first integer, x, plus the second integer, x plus 1, should equal 43. All right, there's a plus sign in front of this set of parentheses, so we really don't even need them. We can just make them disappear. Equals 43. X plus x is 2x, plus 1 equals 43. I believe they just asked you for your equation on this one. All right, number 19 says the first side of a triangle measures 5 inches less than the second side. The third side is 3 inches more than the first side, and the perimeter is 17 inches. How long is the third side? Then the question they ask is if S represents the length of the second side. So you have 1, 2, 3 sides to this triangle, right? And they say X equals the second side. Which of the following represents the length of the third side? Okay, so this is what we know. The first side of the triangle measures 5 inches less than the second side. So that means X is going to be, 1 is going to be X minus 5. All right? And the third side is 3 more than the first. So the third side is the first side, which is 5 minus 5. Plus 3. 3 more than the first side. So you just add those. Negative 5 plus 3 is going to give you a negative 2. All right, number 20. How far does a bus travel in 5 hours at 55 miles an hour? So the formula for any distance problem is rate times time equals distance. So the rate is how fast you're going, your miles per hour. So it says the bus can travel 5 hours at 55 miles an hour. So the rate is 55 miles an hour, and the time is 5 hours. You just have to multiply those straight across, and you'll get your answer. All right, number 21 is actually a distance problem. It says Tom took a trip of 1,360 miles. He traveled by train at 55 miles an hour, and the same number of hours by plane at 285 miles an hour. So how many hours did the trip take? All right, so we know the rate of the train and the plane was the train went at 55 miles an hour and the plane traveled at 285 miles an hour. Now what we know about the time is that it took the same number of hours. So we can just call them both X. All right? So rate times time equals distance. So 55 times X is 55X and 285X. Now, altogether, these two distances should equal 1,360 miles. So you add them, 55X plus 285X equals 1,360. All right, so add those. 55 plus 285 is actually 340. All right, so 340x equals 1360. So this 340 is multiplied to x. You move it over and divide, and you end up with 4. So it took 4 hours by train, and it took 4 hours by plane. So altogether, the trip took how many hours? All right, problem number 22. Which of the following are equivalent to 150%? Okay, so to change a percent to a decimal, you divide by 100. What that does is it moves the decimal space 2 places to the left. Okay, so a decimal is at the back of every number. We just don't show it. So to move it 2 spots, it would come here. So 1.5. Now you can write it 1.5 without putting the 0 there. So check that. But this one, 1.15, you would have to have that 0 there. All right, so that one does not work. All right, and then 1.5 is equal to 1.5. That's what it is. And then 5 over 8, you can try that one. You go 5 divided by 8. If it's equal to 1.5, then yes. I don't believe it's going to be. Number 23 is a percent increase. Misha increased her test score from 60% to 90%. What is the approximate percent increase of Misha's test score? Okay, so for percent increase, you take the two scores and you subtract them, and you divide by the smaller number, okay? Oh, not the larger, the smaller. For percent decrease, if they ask you for the percent decrease, you would subtract them and divide by the larger number. But for increase, you're going to subtract divide by the smaller number, okay? All right, number 24 is an interest problem. I actually really like these kind of problems. So I think they're fun. You may not. All right, 6,000 is invested at 3% interest. How much money must be invested at 5% interest so that the total interest from two investments is $330 after 1 year? All right, so you're mixing two amounts of money. You invested $6,000, and they want to know how much more will you have to invest to equal $330. Sorry, 330, not 300. $330. All right, now we put in our percent amount. 6,000 was invested at 3% or 0.03. All right, this is going to be invested at 0.05%. All right, so again, for this, I would times the whole thing by 100 to get rid of those decimal points. We don't need to mess with those, so the decimal point will move there, there. And the one problem here is it's also going to move back 2 spaces there. So what you end up with is 3 times 6,000 plus 5 times x equals 33,000, all right? So we don't have decimal anymore. That's a comma, not a decimal. All right. So go ahead and do your multiplication. 3 times 6,000 is 18,000, because 3 times 6 is 18, plus 5x equals $33,000. All right, so then all you got to do is solve for x. Remember, this is added, so it's going to move over here and subtract. All right, subtract those two and then divide by the 5, and you'll have your answer for number 24. All right, problem number 25 is a big problem. You guys are going to have no problem though, but you have to show all your steps of variables and equations, even though it's misspelled. Ignore that. Solve and try it, all right? So your first step is to assign your variables. So the question is, a grocer wants to make a 10-pound mixture of cashews and peanuts that he can sell for $3.29 per pound. If a cashew costs $5.60 per pound and peanuts cost $2.30 per pound, how many pounds of each must he mix? Okay, so in this case, they give you the end result. They tell you at the end you're going to have 10 pounds. So when they do that, you automatically assign one of your variables as x in whatever you want to do, and the other one, the end result, cash. I know how to spell cashews. Ew. The end result minus x, okay? So if they give you the end result, immediately it's that, all right? Now we're going to, number 2, write our equation. So peanuts is x. So right now, we're going to mix peanuts, which is x, plus cashews, which is 10 minus x, to equal 10 pounds. All right, so that's just our mixture. Now we're going to add in our money. All right, so the peanuts are right now $2.30 per pound. So we got to multiply this x by 230. All right, and we got to multiply right now the cashews are $5.60 per pound. So 5.60. And in the end, this 10, there's going to be $3.29 per pound. All right, so multiply it by 100. Get rid of all that nonsense. We don't want to deal with decimals. All right, so we have 230x plus 560 times 10 minus x equals 329 times 10. Now no more variables. No more decimals, I'm sorry. All right, now we're going to do our multiplication here. We have 230x plus 560 times 10. So anything times 10 is just going to add a 0. 5,600. 560 times negative x. So it's going to subtract here. Minus 560x equals 3,290 when I multiply that by 10. Now we got to subtract these variables. 230 minus 560. So 230 minus 560 is negative 330. All right, we combine our variables. Over here we have 3290. and we're going to subtract the 5,600. I'm sorry. So 3290 minus 5,600 is going to give you a negative 990, negative 330x, and then just divide those for your answer. So x, I think 990 divided by 330 is going to be 3. So x is 3 pounds of peanuts, and cashews is 10 minus 3. I'm sorry, this is peanuts. Peanuts, there are 3 pounds of peanuts, and cashews is going to be 10 minus 3, which is 7 pounds. That makes 10, 3 plus 10, and then you need to try it. So you're going to take 3 and put it in your equation here, right? And in your equation here, and solve and make sure it equals at the end. So that part you're going to do on your own, okay? Try your very best. Make sure you know how to solve for x and how to assign variables, okay? Don't just get the answers. Do it right. Be ready for your test.